That great man, V.I. Lenin, at the turn of the century, wrote a book entitled Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. Is it imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism? Yes. If one would read this little pamphlet, one would see here that Mr. Lenin had precisely pointed out that all of the world had already been conquered and divided by colonial powers. There was no else in the world left to be conquered or divided by colonial powers. This is the time when Zionism comes to rise. Zionism comes to look for a state when everywhere else in the world is already dominated. Thus, in order for Mr. Herzl to get a country for Zionists, what he did was to attach himself to imperialism, British imperialism in this case, quite specifically. Of course, as an African who suffered under the heels of British imperialism, I can have no love for it, and certainly I cannot love anyone who attaches themselves to it for the foundation of a state and then call this a liberation movement. Liberation movements fight against imperialism, not with it. Clearly here. Yes. The legal foundation of the state of Israel is what is known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was issued in 1917. A man in the government of Britain named Balfour wrote a paper and promised the Jews a national home. The national home he promised them was an area which Britain was colonizing, Palestine. Palestine didn't belong to the British, just like Ireland doesn't belong to the British, even though they have troops there. But here, these British imperialists signed a note and gave it to the Jews, and they accepted it. Where is the morality for this? If you say that Israel belongs to you, then you don't go to a thief to get Israel, you go and take it. Once you go to an immoral being such as British imperialism, and this is the basis for you getting the land, then clearly here those who are truly liberation fighters must question this. The basis, we say, is the Balfour Declaration, and Zionists know it. Zionism is certainly not a liberation movement because it never fought against any imperialism. As a matter of fact, today, Zionism is the baby, child, and infant protector of imperialism in the Middle East. It carries out the interests of American imperialism. As a matter of fact, Zionism and American imperialism is like this. If our tax dollars would stop giving money to Israel, the state would sink tomorrow. And certainly no one can deny that American imperialism is the leading imperialist nation in the world. So we cannot see how a liberation movement is so tied, string and ham to American imperialism. They work hand in hand with American imperialism. Thus, they can hardly be a liberation movement. In addition to this, Zionism has nothing to do with anything religion, nothing. All religions are concerned with human beings after they die. That's what religions are for. Islam will tell you what happens to you when you die. As a matter of fact, this which forces you to live a good life so that after death, you'll be able to enjoy the rewards of heaven. The same is true for Judaism. But Zionism says nothing about the individual after they're dead. They don't give a damn about you. Zionism has nothing to do with religion at all. And one should not make the confusion here. The Palestinian state belongs to the Palestinian people. This is a fact.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family. Welcome to a Saturday edition of RBN Live. And as you guys see, I just want to give you guys another example of the long-standing solidarity between Black Americans, South Africans, and Palestinians. Our boy Kwame Ture, who I draw a lot of inspiration from. I strive to be a fraction of what Kwame Ture represented. That was the idea of the original name Fred Hampton leftist, even though it pissed off some liberals. Because the idea of a Fred Hampton leftist is the idea that we should never abandon this revolutionary culture that we developed. And even if we don't have the intellectual power of a Malcolm X, even though we don't have the accolades of a Fred Hampton, we're still going to call ourselves Fred Hampton leftists because that is what every single African American, I believe, should strive to be. I think that's what everyone should strive to be. But if you're an African American in this country, why the hell would you try to be like anyone else? Our culture try to be like people try to be like Jay-Z. They try to be like rappers. They try to be like celebrities. These are the heroes I look up to. which is why I was extremely excited to give my speech at KU. Because before my speech at KU, I was thinking about Kwame Ture. And I'm still very thankful for Jill Stein and the Green Party for inviting me. Because when I was on that stage, standing in front of all those faces, I remember my mama was asking me, man, you're not nervous doing stuff like that? No, because as I was getting onto that stage on at KU, when I gave those speeches at black barbershops, like I used to imagine Kwame Ture. I would imagine Malcolm X and them giving these public speeches. Once again, these are the people I want to model my politics after unapologetically. The best compliment that I can get that a lot of people often hide as a diss when they said, look at Nick Cruz over there. Look at Nick and RBN. Who the fuck they think they are? They think they're the next Fred Hampton. Look at Nick. He think he's the next Malcolm X. Bro, the fact that you even use my name in their sentence with them shows that we are on the right track. I am a few lifetimes away before I can be compared to the person we've seen on this screen. But everyone should strive to reach that. That is what the people in Black Power media didn't understand when they got upset because of how can you call yourself Fred Hampton leftist? You're not a Fred Hampton. The idea is that we all should strive to be. The idea is that we all should strive to be the best version of a revolutionary that we are. I've only been a theory reading Marxist for 3 years. Like I look at my old opinions like from 4 years ago, and I'm horrified, my friends. I see people show me tweets from my Bernie era. Like whenever people get pissed off at me, like, hey, remember you tweeted this in 2019? I'm like, yes, it's horrible. Isn't the purpose growth? So my purpose is to continue to grow. So when, like once again, for example, I'm 33 years old. How old is Kwame Ture right there? My thing is, imagine me when I'm 43. You know what I mean? When I got a little bit of the grays on the side, when you guys see the salt and pepper in the beard. That's who I'm preparing to be. We still young and dumb. We make a lot of mistakes at RBN. You guys seen them. I made a lot of mistakes. But we are here to grow. We are here to learn. And we are here to educate. And which is why I'm blessed to be in the position I am right now. And why I'm blessed to have the ability to expose charlatans like these. And this is the argument that we use when we talk about the state of Israel. I got into a big thing with Nick Fuentes when Nick Fuentes was responding to me because I was calling him out for being the Israeli op that he is. Because people who support Israel, they want you to make it about a religion struggle. They want you to make it about the Jews. The Jews are in control. The Jews. So Israel couldn't find a better ally than people like Nick Fuentes who buys into that bullshit. The struggle of empires, the struggle against Israel, the struggle against colonialism, the struggle against empire. Because as Kwame Ture said in the video, if you're anti-colonial like I am, it's a very core tenet of my ideology is anti-colonialism. If you're anti-colonial, you can't accept Israel. You can't acknowledge Israel because that land was given and blessed by British colonialism. That fact alone is why Israel does not have the right to exist as far as I'm concerned. How can you be an anti-colonialist, someone who's anti-imperialist, and then you justify the existence of Israel, a land given to the Zionists out of a colonial project? So when you understand that the struggle against Zionism is a struggle of anti-colonialism, that's the gravest threat to the Zionist project. It's the people like Nick Fuentes and many others who wants to muddy the water about what the struggle is about. He's making, I oppose Jewish people. We need to stand up for Jewish infiltration. Shut the fuck up. I called him out today. Nick Fuentes don't respond to a lot of people. He responds to me because I called him out for the Israeli ops that they are. Actually, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it before I get into this one, because you're gonna see Tulsi in the right wing inability to acknowledge the fight being against colonialism. That's why they are openly hypocritical. That's why you have RFK who speak out against the Ukraine war. That's why they speak out against Afghanistan, Iraq. But despite all that, they get the other issues wrong. Why is that? It's because they're not getting Ukraine correctly. They're not getting any of these other issues correctly because they're anti-imperialist. They actually support the United States empire. They just support good policies that benefits the empire. And this is what I always mention to people. When people say RFK Jr. anti-war, all these right-wingers anti-war, the idea that MAGA was ever anti-war, absurd. They were just against bad empire policy. Now, if you support the concept of empire in general, you will support war. It's inevitable. It's inevitable for you to support empire, imperialist action, colonialist action, because once again, your principles are not rooted in any ideology that meant down to tear down the colonial structure. So now this is why Israel loves people like Nick Fuentes, and him and his audience, they're so dumb they don't realize it. He said, I agree with left-wing anti-Zionist criticism of Israel, but our movement is distinct from theirs. I don't merely oppose Israel's current actions. I also reject the rabbinical? Rabbi shit, whatever. Judaism and organized Jewish influence in general. So you guys see how he's making it about Judaism and about the Jews? He said anti-Zionism is not enough. Now, I'm not going to go through our entire exchange, but I got Nick Fuentes fanboys all on me. But I think I did, like, you're not going to ratio someone like Nick Fuentes, but I think I'm doing pretty good because I'm exposing these frauds. And this mindset is why they will never get this issue on the right. Do anyone know how to say that? I can't fucking say that. Rabbinical? I now say rabbi. Rabbinical? Judaism? I have no idea. You guys can roast me if you want. That's fine. And I explained, strange how your narrative about hating Jews is exactly what the establishment wants people to think anti-Israel people are. Because I am unapologetically anti-Israel. I don't acknowledge Israel. I don't think they have the right to exist. And I think I got not only a moral position on that, I have an intellectual and a legal basis on that. But this is why I have a problem with the quote-unquote anti-Israel right, the same way I had the same problem with the anti-Ukraine war right, because they're not rooted in any principles. I explained, it's almost like you're here to legitimize the claims of Zionists that people that are anti-Israel hate Jews. You're doing their bidding, but you are too dumb to realize it. And that's like, I think they're ops. I think they're doing it on purpose. But when you see these right-wing anti-Israel people, they're here to obfuscate the struggle, to legitimize the claims from the ADL and these dishonest Zionists that everyone who opposes Israel just do so because they hate the Jews. So once again, you're not going to ratio someone who has bot-driven and who has the support of Nick Fuentes. But one thing, I think I'm doing good. Over 100 likes here. And I was reading this one because Nick responded to me. He said, okay, he said, ignoring ethnic affinities is silly. So they all about identity politics. That's what this guy said. Ignoring ethnic affinities is silly. Once again, Nick Fuentes, these people are all about identity politics. Meanwhile, we had Lee Camp on our show and he explained how Christian Zionism is the largest driver of Zionism. There are more Christian Zionists in America than there are Jews in the world. Like Lee Camp just explained this to us this week. Lee Camp is a Jew. So if the struggle is against y'all Jewish people, why is Lee Camp not supporting Israel like Nick Fuentes and them pretending that like you would? And you guys see how Nick Fuentes, the amazing intellectual that is banned because he's here to destroy the left. That's what they said. They said Nick Fuentes is this titan of an intellectual, and we must ban him because we can't ban him. We can't debate them in a marketplace of ideas. That's what they told us. Ever since this guy was unbanned, I have been deeply unimpressed. This man is no intellectual. So after hearing my argument, you want to know what his response is? This is totally delusional. Oh, you're delusional. No argument. Completely stunned into silence is Nick Fuentes by my arguments that you can't say that your struggle against Israel is against Jewish people when you have Jewish people against Israel. When you have Christian Zionists who support Israel in larger numbers than Jewish people. So you're here to obfuscate, and you're an op, Nick Fuentes. So I point out the fact that he clearly didn't even try to make an argument. There are more Christian Zionists in America than there are Jews in the world. Making it about Jews is pure cope. What do you think Zionism is, dipshit? It's a Jewish state. Now, this will be the last part I read here, because this is where he gave up. Because this is when he realized he was out of his depth. He said, what do you think Zionism is, dipshit? It's a Jewish state. So I'll just read my reply here. Your political ideas are so surface level, it's embarrassing. Christian Zionists fund and support Israel as an imperial project in order to maintain control of the Middle East. The Jewish state is a front, and we know that because the founders of Zionism wasn't even religious. The most religious faction of Judaism rejects Israel. Zionists want you to make it about Jews and religion. You play right into their hands because you're a useful idiot to Israel. Just like our brother Kwame Ture was explaining. The last thing they want to make it is a bout of anti-colonial struggle. Yeah, someone said I broke him. Bro, Nick Fuentes have these big debates on Twitter. He always argue with people. But you guys see how quickly he tapped out when it came to me? He's like, oh, you're just delusional. Oh, you're delusional. Then he was trying to have his fans go after me. Because trust me, I am getting attacked by Nick Fuentes fans right now. But because I dismantle him intellectually. They were trying to pretend he's an intellectual. You guys see how quickly I dismantle his ideology? The quote-unquote right-wing intellectual, Nick Fuentes, destroyed by a few basic points. Now, I gotta quickly move on because I'm gonna show you guys the fact that science doesn't drive these people criticizing empire. Like, they criticize Ukraine, but I think mostly a lot of that with Republicans was just attacking Biden because we see how Trump is getting in charge. He's all for Ukraine. So Tulsi is going to be confronted. Actually, I should just I need to shut the fuck up. Let me just get right to it because Tulsi is
civilization
confronted with her hypocrisy on Ukraine versus Israel. Now she's a hardcore Zionist. She's a diehard Zionist now. Just another horror for Rabbi Smooly. I'm gonna show you guys that here soon. Just like RFK Jr. RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, horror for Israel. So I'm gonna play the first part where she virtue signals as some anti-war, truth-speaking crusader, and this person who is, as you guys gonna see, completely on her side. And he's gonna spoon feed her answers, definitely ideologically aligned, definitely not a person trying to expose Tulsi. So after Tulsi talk about Ukraine, he just casually brings up like, hey man, I get that, but what about, is that different with Gaza? So I'm gonna shut up and let it play. You guys are gonna see why
you have said you're not an isolationist or an interventionist, you're a realist, is what you've said. Explain that a little bit more in the context of what we've seen over the last 25 years. I mean, the forever war in Afghanistan, weapons of mass destruction, that kind of was like, wait a minute, hold on here for a second. That wasn't necessarily true at all. And nation building, all of that. Help us through your position on that, because there's a personal aspect to it, as you write in the book about your brothers and sisters in your brigade who never made it home. And that's a memory that never leaves you. Talk about how that has literally changed your life, that time in Iraq, serving there.
It's what motivated me to run for Congress and to run for president, to honor those who never made that trip home. And it came from a recognition of personal experience of how too many of our politicians on both sides of the aisle so easily, immediately resort to war. whether it's economic warfare or kinetic warfare, when posed with the foreign policy challenge, without thinking through what is the cost going to be? What is our objective? Does this actually serve the best interest of our country, of our national security, of our economy, the well-being of the American people? Their emotional knee-jerk reaction is like, well, we've just got to go drop some bombs, or we've got to go punish this bad guy, or we've got to go and topple this dictator of this country. So short-sighted, and as we've seen over the last 20 plus years, so often over and over end up putting us in a position where it has undermined our own national security interests and come at the cost of countless lives and American taxpayer dollars. We must exhaust all diplomatic means and measures to deal with these challenges that we face, and they are unique, and there are many on the foreign policy front, recognizing war must be the last resort, and that these decisions must always be made within the context of what is in the best interest of the American people in our country.
Sound good, right? If only she wasn't a raging fucking hypocrite, right? So, if you watch the first 2 minutes and 13 seconds not knowing who this person is, you would think, oh man, that sounds pretty decent, right? So once again, this guy who is 100% on Tulsi's side is going to accidentally expose her, because after she gives this bullshit answer, pretending that she's anti-war, that she criticized the empire, he's then going to bring up the hypocrisy she has about Gaza.
You mentioned American taxpayer dollars. Is there a difference between funding Israel and funding Ukraine? Like, how do you see that exactly? I'm just curious about that.
Yes, there's a
because
very clear
radical
difference.
Islamic.
There's a very big difference. Is there? Is there, Tulsi? When there's a war for Israel, I'm for it. When there's a war anywhere else, I'm kind of against it. Because remember, Tulsi was in Africa. She's an imperialist. She supported our campaigns in Somalia. Like, she, in her weakness on Israel, will lead her to be weak in our campaign against Iran in the future. So is it different, Tulsi? You gotta see her twist herself in a pretzel. Because I don't know if she was even expecting this.
Between funding Israel and funding Ukraine, like, how do you see that exactly? I'm just curious about that.
Yes, there is a
Because
very clear
radical
difference.
Islamic extremism is what Israel is on the front lines of every day.
There is a very real difference, and there will always be with every unique challenge that we face, and that unique decision that must be made. Using those two examples, are we better off increasing and escalating tensions and waging this proxy war against Russia, of which Ukraine has never had any shot at winning?
And Israel never had a shot at defeating Hamas. Hamas is still running strong. You have even Israeli officials, they're openly admitting that they're about to lose this war. The goal was to eliminate Hamas, and now Hamas is still running strong. Every time they raise an area, kill massive amounts of civilians, Hamas pop right back up. And then they had to go back to that place. Now they got to go to Rafah after saying that they wiped out Hamas already. The war against Hamas is lost. There's no struggle that ends in victory here for Israel. But you guys see that the hypocrisy doesn't matter.
Increasing the likelihood of nuclear war, that is counter to and undermining our own national security. What to speak of the fact that we've spent hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars now.
She said there, and I'm going to let more of it play here, but she said sending money to Ukraine impacts us in our national security because it puts us at risk with Russia. Now, if you apply the same thing to Israel, Israel is our greatest national security threat. We have a war we're losing right now to the Houthis in Sirah in Yemen. We have shipping being disrupted because of Israel. We have tensions with Iran, with Syria, with Iraq. The Middle East is on fire because of Israel. So you guys see what she's saying doesn't make sense at face value? So she's saying, oh, well, I'm against funding Ukraine because if we fund Ukraine, that's going to lead us into never-ending conflict. Funding Israel led us into never-ending conflict. Every war we fought on the last 25, 30 years has been an Israeli war. Like, the Russia-Ukraine war is unique in that sense. That it's finally a war that we're not fighting on behalf of Israel. But so I want you guys to hear your thoughts. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna let more of it play.
Increasing.
I'm gonna go back a little bit more. I want to hear the full breadth of the argument.
Waging this proxy war against Russia, of which Ukraine has never had any shot at winning, increasing the likelihood of nuclear war. That is counter to and undermining our own national security. What to speak of the fact that we've spent hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars now for what purpose? For what purpose? Putin was wrong to invade Ukraine. There's no question about it. There's a lot of historical context that went into that, but the bottom line is we should have had a president who would have gone in very early and negotiated a peaceful end to that war as quickly as possible. Save lives, save American taxpayer dollars. When you look at what's happening in the war between Israel and Hamas, and it is a war between Israel and Hamas, a radical Islamist terrorist group, this is just the latest front of this war that's been waged for a very long time between these radical Islamist terrorist groups that have been.
You guys see what Nick Fuentes and Tulsi Gabbard does? You guys see what Tulsi Gabbard, who support Israel, has in common with the people on the right who think they oppose Israel, Nick Fuentes? Make it about religion. It's a holy war that we're waging against Islamists, against Muslims. It's a holy war. See, you guys see how they use religion to trick the masses into supporting war? This is an issue of settler colonialism. Hamas is not waging a religious war. You have Christians, Muslims, and Jewish people who lived in harmony for centuries before the Zionist Israeli project. What is the common denominator? The Zionist Israeli project that created a lot of animosity because of their violent settler colonial apartheid activities. So here's Tulsi, just like Nick Fuentes, like all these fake people, these fake anti-empire people on the right, they obfuscate the issue. Fam, I'm going to have another dear Marxist and communist brother. We understand what the fight is really about. We understand that this fight is against imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. But these right-wingers, they will refuse to acknowledge what the fight is about because they support the institutions that we try to tear down. They are the imperialists. Their biggest criticism that they're not running the empire. So if you're not addressing this with science, if you're not seeing that it's an empire that needs to be teared down and Israel is a part of this empire, you start making up bullshit to get people to support war. Like, oh, it's a battle against Islamists. I'm gonna let her finish here. I see my guest. I'm gonna introduce our guest here soon. I appreciate you for joining. I'm gonna finish this segment. I introduce you. Let's hear what Tulsi says here.
Long time between these radical Islamist terrorist groups that have been waging it militarily and ideologically. This is in our best interests, as well as all freedom-loving countries and civilization, to take on what is the greatest short and long-term threat to freedom.
Mm-hmm. And yet, Joe Biden just recently pausing weapon shipments to Israel. How do you see that? I mean, there are folks that say he's on the side of Hamas at this point.
He is acting out of fear.
Joe Biden is Hamas now. These people who say they believe in America first say you are agents of Hamas by breaking the law. You guys know these weapon shipments to Israel is illegal. You are not allowed to send weapons to countries that are committing human rights violations. I know we laugh at that. I just want to let you guys know how criminal our ruling class has been for decades. As they implement harsh law and order into our communities, as they justify unhinged police violence under the guise of implementing law and order and demanding us to obey, those same ruling class break the laws that govern them all the time. So here's Tulsi and this guy criticizing Joe Biden. Once again, this whole narrative they made up is fake, by the way. Joe Biden gave all the weapons to Israel that they need for the Rafah invasion before the pause, my friends. So what they're saying here is it just made up garbage. And let me finish the clip. And then I'll show you guys RFK when we get our guests in here.
Which is why he has failed, like previous administrations before him, to wage this counter-ideological warfare against this Islamist ideology whose goal is to establish Islamic rule over the entire world, even with what's happening in our college campuses, even knowing that this is Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, this is their objective. He refuses to call it out for what it is because he's afraid of being called an Islamophobe. And it's the same reason why he is not taking seriously the need to defeat Hamas and creating a policy that really, frankly, doesn't make any sense.
What you just said makes no sense. But you know why what you said makes sense? Well, what she said makes no sense because you guys see she's just another groupie of this motherfucker. I think Alec Jones called him Rabbi Butt Plug, which is like the most hilarious nickname. Rabbi Butt Plug here, Rabbi Smooly, and Tulsi Gabbard. You guys see why she repeats the nonsense we're hearing, making about a battle of Islamists. They don't want to make it a struggle against empire. So since we're talking about Rabbi Smooly, sycophants like Tulsi Gabbard here, I'm gonna show you guys another person who is advised, who Rabbi Smooly advised, RFK Jr. This one's gonna be shorter. This is not like we already knew what RFK Jr. was about. I called him out forever. Like, no, I don't know why anyone would ever take RFK Jr. seriously after his unhinged performance on Jimmy Dore and then refusing to debate Max Blumenthal. Like, this position on Israel is disqualifying. I'm glad that we're in a moment where most people are realizing it, because if you're weak if you're completely subservient to Israel, that means you're going to be horrible on Syria. That means you're going to be horrible on Iran. That means you're going to be horrible on the Congo as a genocide that Israel is funding as well. You're going to be horrible on the Sudan. You're going to be horrible on so many issues. So people are like, oh man, come on, man, just one issue. No, Israel will define your Middle Eastern policy as a president. So you must get it correct. So let's play. This is RFK Jr. denying the genocide once again. And he was on Russell Brand's show. And Russell Brand tried his best to take it easy on him, asking about the genocide. He gives this unhinged answer, and then he proceeds to get completely destroyed by Russell Brand's audience. And Russell Brand hasn't necessarily been covering Gaza that extensively. He barely touches it. But his answer was so bad, even Russell Brand's audience saw through him. And he was trending. People were like, oh, God. Damn it, I want to support RFK. We really wanted to do this white boy revolution. We really wanted to do it. But even all the people who was weak on this issue, even they are realizing that this guy is a fucking tool of Rabbi Butt Plug.
You know, I don't believe that there's a genocide going on, and I don't think Israel's intention is genocide. I don't believe there's any evidence of genocide. There is genocide going on in the Mideast. But it's a genocide of Jews, and it's a genocide of Christians, and nobody's complaining about it for some reason. And there are much worse wars than what's happening in Gaza right now. But for some reason, people don't want to complain unless it's Jews who can be blamed.
So I said I wasn't gonna stop it, but this guy is such a psychopathic liar. You got, as I said in my speech in KU, more civilians died. Now, I think more children died in Gaza in like the first 5 months. God knows what it is now. More children died in 5 months of Gaza than all wars in the last 4 years combined. Meanwhile, he's like, why do people care about Israel? Well, come on, you guys are picking on the Jews. You guys see the lying psychopath he is? And this is why you can't do this shit like, oh yeah, I like RFK, but Israel. No, RFK completely discredits everything else. Like if you like RFK Jr. because his position on the vaccines, because his position on health and fitness or whatever, you must condemn him. You must outright condemn him, because what he's doing, he made me question everything he ever said about the vaccines. I'm like, this motherfucker might have been lying about that too. I'm not a fucking expert at vaccines. Now I'm thinking everything he said back then was a lie. So you guys understand, you can't be, if you agree with him on other issues, you can't be like, oh, well, I like him. No, you must utterly condemn him because it delegitimizes everything else he talks about. I completely and utterly condemn RFK, and we have from the beginning because I agree with him on Ukraine. I agree with them. So I'm like, all right, I agree with them on Ukraine, but this is a fucking kook. If probably not the same reason I agree with them. Like we can't associate with people who lie like this. But anyway, let's continue.
And nobody's complaining about it for some reason. And there are much worse wars than what's happening in Gaza right now. But for some reason, people don't want to complain unless it's Jews who can be blamed. The idea of saying that there's a genocide going on in Israel because people die in war, and that in every war that's going on in the world today, there are civilians dying, and the average death rate, civilian to combatant death rate, according to the United Nations and to the Institute for the Study of Urban Warfare at West Point, is about 9 to 1. But in Gaza, it's about 1 to 1. So they've achieved they protect it in the most.
When you see them just make up shit like this, like I'm generally very skeptical of everything that comes from Big Pharma, but I'm skeptical of everything that came from him now. He could have been easily just making all those numbers up as far as we know. Like, that's how much I distrust this motherfucker, because these obvious lies, like, you can't ruin their credibility. Like I said, how many times have I ever lied to you guys? Like, I may get things wrong, I may mispronounce stuff. If I get something wrong, it's because I got it wrong. I don't fucking lie ever. Like, I know how much that will ruin my credibility in this space. I know how much of a handicap I am already in. I don't have money. I don't have resources. I don't have backing of establishments or institution. My word is my bond. Me telling the truth is the only thing that makes you guys listen to me. Because if I was lying to you guys wouldn't take me seriously. You know what I mean? That's why I can't lie to you guys. If I misspeak, I misspoke. If I misread something, I misread it, but I'm never lying. But you guys see how RFK and these people, they outright lie? And I know it sounds basic. I know this is a basic analysis, but it still shocks me that people do this in politics. You know what I mean? It's so weird. Anyway, sorry, let me continue this video. I'm just talking shit now.
About 1 to 1. So they've achieved they protect it in the most challenging conditions. The Israeli government the IDF has protected civilians better than any army in history. John Spencer said it has done more to protect civilians under more difficult circumstances than any army in history.
Bro, what? That is so beneath me. Like, RFK is so dumb. He's reached a point where he's like beneath me. I feel like him saying that is beneath me even responding. As I said before, more children dead in this conflict than all wars combined. Like, Israel, they argue against the concept that they should care about civilians. They would say stuff like, why should we feed these people because we have war? I don't know, it's because of the fucking law. They are arguing against the concept of international law. They argue against the concept, against the fact that collective punishment is a war crime. You see the Israeli settlers that block aid come into Gaza. They argue against the concept that is banned using starvation as a tool of war. They generally don't understand it. And we're seeing the West, as I said many times before, rebel against the concept of international law. I don't know, I had a guest plan. I don't know if we're having tech issues. Let me know if you can hear me. I think I might be having tech issues with my guest. If not, I can still go. We can always. I still got a few things to cover here. Hopefully, I'm trying to get my guest in here. Okay. Sorry. Let me see. Let me get you in here then. Let me bring my guest in here. Yeah, I think I'll do that now because I think we can wrap the RFK Tulsi segment up. We're gonna move into Gaza, and I have amazing guests recommended by Zoya. I know him as Dubala. Uh, Always have great content on X. A communist educator. Kobe, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm glad I got you on. I'm sorry. I thought we was having tech issues, but I'm glad I was able to get you on. I appreciate your patience. Welcome to RBN, my friend.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for having me. I'm actually walking home from. There's been a lot of protests at the University of Chicago, so I'll have my camera on in a little bit. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's good
yeah.
to be here.
Yeah, I saw that you was at protest. We're gonna get to that here very soon. Actually, I want to ask you about the protest you're at. But what I always do when I bring on people on the RBN for the first time, once again, Kobe is that the best way to call it Kobe? This is the first time we met Kobe. Great communist educator. I want to bring you on. I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, your work, how you got into activism, because you are constantly a part of these free Palestine protests as well. So I just want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah. So my name on Twitter is Tabula, which is a Zulu word. It means sheep, and it comes from a. I don't want to get your channel flagged or anything, so I won't say the name of the song. But it comes from an anti-apartheid song. Um, basically about armed struggle against oppressors. And so I grew up in South Africa. My parents are Black Americans. They moved there in the '90s when I was a kid. I was like 2 years old. Um, and I moved to Chicago in 2015 for university. So I've been here for almost 10 years. Um, I organize with the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I'm one of the co-chairs. I'm also a member of Freedom Road Socialist Organization, and I teach middle school science on the south side of Chicago.
Nice.
Um, I'm also, as of about a month ago, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Coalition to March on the DNC, because the Democratic National Convention is going to be in Chicago between August 19th and 22nd. So, Genocide Joe, Killer Kamala, all those genocide supporting politicians, they're going to be here in Chicago. And we're planning to get tens of thousands of people out to protest against it.
That's fantastic stuff, and I definitely got to hook up with you because I have plans on going to Chicago too with our boy Kid, and I definitely want to be part of any action to hold Genocide Joe accountable. It's great that you're doing all this amazing work on the ground. You've been not only you are actually working in education, you are actually participating in what I would define as revolutionary education as well, and also being in the streets. So much props to you. It's great to have you on RBN. This is the first time we got to meet. Recommended by Zoe. You guys know Zoe is love, Zoe is life. Always bringing the best guests. So it's great to meet you. Is it okay to call you Kobe? I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's
All
fine.
right, sounds good. And do you mind? Because I'm actually want to learn something. I was just Google. I found an article on Anthony Gay. Do you want to talk about Anthony Gay, who in his story?
Yeah, so let me just give a little bit of context about the Chicago Alliance. So the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression came out of the campaign to free Angela Davis and all political prisoners in the 1970s, in 1973 specifically. And since then, we've been dealing with a lot of repression from the police and from the state more broadly. And we were, a few years ago, up until 2019, we were down to just the Chicago chapter and another chapter in Louisville. So we uh, through the rebellion after the murder of Michael Brown, we built up the organization, connected with people nationally, and I say we. I only came around in 2019, But we we built up the organization to where we could reestablish ourselves as a national organization. So now, we were in, last time I checked, it was about 24 cities. It's probably more than that now. Um, uh, and part of the work that we do is fight to free people who've been tortured by police and to confessing to things that they didn't do, or people who are, had were framed by the police or political prisoners. So Anthony Gay, um, he was originally locked up in the early 2000s over like a very, very petty quote unquote crime. Um, and he spent 22 years in solitary confinement.
Jesus
Um,
Christ.
yeah, so, according to the UN definition of torture, solitary confinement for longer than 14 days is a form of torture. And, this criminal system has, locked him up for 22 years. Um, and he, is a very brilliant person, a very brilliant organizer, jailhouse lawyer. When he got out, he represented himself, got the charges, got himself out. But then they planted a gun on him, so they, arrested him on a bogus gun charge, and now he's locked up again in federal prison. So we're trying to connect, not just on the Chicago level, but nationally, connect people to fight for him to get out. So if you go to caarpr.org, you can find more information, more specifics. You can also go to on social media, CAARPR now, at on Twitter. That's where the updates about Anthony Gay and other cases that we're working on. That's where we post those updates.
Yeah, look at this. The march on the DNC will be, man, dude. This Chicago is about to be wow. That's why they're talking about doing it virtual. They're talking about canceling. I think they probably will now. The march on the DNC will be a march for Palestine. Our main demand would be stand with Palestine in U.S. aid to Israel. Apartheid Israel has murdered over 30,000 people between October 7th and December 31st. So they're not even counting this year, my friends.
Yeah.
They're not counting and there's so many people count on the rebel. That's why I'm more inclined to believe the Ralph Nader figures. He explains the science of it, how you have all the people in the rebel based on how long the famine is going on, based on how many diseases going on. Like he had a very scientific model he used, and based on that, he said it has to be around 100,000 dead around. And I am more inclined to believe that number, and time will tell because God knows what the number actually is right now. Yet the U.S. continues to. I'm sorry, I'm just reading a little bit from your guys' site because I'm seeing it for the first time myself. Yet the United States continues to back the massacres. Almost 40 years ago, Joe Biden said the United States backed Israel with billions of dollars annually out of naked self-interest, and the United States will have to invent an Israel if it didn't exist. I'm glad he brought that up. And you guys know it's not a coincidence. And I want to share this story. I want to get you in here for your thoughts, Kobe. You guys know that Joe Biden received more AIPAC money than any politician in American history, right? And it's a coincidence that he's now in charge when they are now waging their Knockbook 2.0. Kobe, do you have anything you want to add on before I move on? Going once, go talk past you with any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a misconception that a lot of people have that um, that Israel is controlling the United States, and that if it wasn't for the Zionists putting their hands into American politics, the U.S. wouldn't be supporting Israel, which is not true. Like Joe Biden said, Israel is like a landed aircraft carrier. It exists to support in the interests of U.S. and European imperialism. And that's why they support Israel no matter what. For the same reason they supported apartheid South Africa, back in the 70s and 80s, because that was their way of dominating oppressed nations in Southern Africa. And right now, they're one of their main ways of dominating oppressed nations in the Middle East and North Africa is through Israel. So that any we have to sort of see where the primary enemy is, which is American imperialism, and Western imperialism more broadly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was to the point. You even have RFK Jr., the guy I was playing earlier, the unhinged Zionist. He even admitted that part out loud. He's like, Israel is important because it's almost like an aircraft carrier for us. It's a very important strategic location for them, and they're there to create all this chaos. And these people like Tulsi who trying to make this about some sort of religious struggle, the Islamists who want to destroy the West. These people are living in peace and harmony, Muslim, Christians. You have Muslims and Christians in Palestine now who live in harmony. So this thing they try to do to confuse people, and a lot of people have been confused for a long time, but I'm glad people are starting to wake up, especially this new revolutionary generation. Like Gen Z is just, as a millennial, bro, I'm just so excited, and God knows what I think they call them Generation Alpha or whatever now. The ones Alpha, God knows what they're gonna be like, because they're gonna know nothing but this struggle shit. You know what I mean? They're gonna we see. I want to hear your thoughts on this because you're out there in the streets, and once again, I always implore my brothers and sisters to be safe out there because we are living in this era of fascism where we have collaboration between our police, the IDF, who they train together, and now the corruption and how intertwined they are being exposed. And it's so like I've been studying this issue for years, and even I'm still shocked to this day. But like how blatant the corruption and how intertwined Israeli apartheid violence is with our police state. And I want you to speak on that when I pass it to you as well. But look at this tweet. I give shout out to Raphael here for this tweet highlighting this. Billionaire CEOs didn't just reach Mayor Adams in a private chat, urging him to arrest pro-Palestine Columbia students. They also offered private staff to help the NYPD. The mayor accepted. Guys, I told you we live in a new era of the Pinkertons. We have Capitol hired thugs teaming up with the state, just like in UCLA, to crack down on protests and people criticizing the government. Kobe, you want to take this on? Anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think that's why solidarity between oppressed people is so important. Like our oppressors are sharing resources, they're sharing money, they're sharing tactics, strategies, techniques, technologies, all these different things. We talk about how like during the Ferguson uprising, the tear gas that was used on people who were protesting against the murder of Michael Brown was Israeli manufactured tear gas. So Palestinians who were on the ground and some who were witnessing this from Palestine were giving people tips on how to deal with that tear gas. And it didn't just happen in 2014. Like this is decades of solidarity. Going back to Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, and Malcolm X, leaders of the civil rights movement here, who supported Palestinian liberation, as well as Nelson Mandela when he was in the U.S. He was asked, why do you support Yasser Arafat and Gaddafi and Fidel Castro? And he said, well, when America was, giving us a cold shoulder, these other countries that you referred to as dictatorships, they were supporting our liberation struggle. So we support theirs, and our freedom is not complete without the freedom of the Palestinians. So that like imperialism is like a global system, and there's the cop cities that are coming up, mainly in Atlanta, but also in Chicago. We had um, a cop city that was being established here as well. Um, like those are like Israeli occupation force
Yeah,
centers, where they're training police to use the same horrific techniques that they use on Palestinians, on black and brown people here. Like the chokehold that Derek Chauvin used to kill George Floyd. That was something that Palestinians have seen from the Israeli occupation forces in the past. So, there's kind of sometimes people have this impulse of like, well, I have too many problems here to care about what's going on, halfway around the world. But the thing is, your problems are connected, so the solution, and what we say in Freedom Road Socialist Organization, is that we have to unite the many to defeat the few, because our oppressors, our exploiters, there's always going to be less of them than there are of us. And their strategy, because of that, is to divide and conquer. So our strategy is to unite and fight. And everything you've said, I agree with, and that's why solidarity is the weapon that we use to fight back.
yeah, that's why it's so great to have you on, Kobe, because that was so on point. Like, I couldn't say it better myself, because this is what I've been stressing, and this is why I've been telling you guys have been so important over the last few decades. The international solidarity. I had Nkosi Mandela on, the grandson of Nelson Mandela on. The solidarity between South Africans, African Americans, Afro Brazilians as well, because they've been on the side of Palestinians. I would throw them in, and Palestinians. We've been in the struggle, in the radical side. The people who don't fall for the capitalist Zionist head fakes, like many of the Negro sellouts in our community. We got to stay on the path of revolutionary struggle and stay in solidarity with each other. That's why I can't stand oppression Olympics. And you see this all the time. Like, why should I be worried about the Palestine? Like, what are you talking about? They are literally practicing over there to bring stuff over here. And now, you know how Israel labeled Palestinians as domestic terrorists, terrorists all the time. They doing that for people who are protesting Cop City. The same tactics that they use on Palestinians for years, they're just now implementing it domestically, and no one's batting an eye. The whole labeling people domestic terrorists, using tear gas. Once again, I explained many times, tear gas is a war crime, my friends. The cops has been lying to people about the effects of tear gas, and there's a reason why it's banned in war, but they just use it on our people all the time, and no one questioned it. Now, what I'm showing here, I'll show you guys a collection. I saw one from Germany, France, and London. People rebelling against this Zionist empire, and now is the time we need to really connect, especially with these international communities standing against apartheid. Because you had the International Court of Justice, you have Israel giving these bullshit arguments. They were getting booed, guys. Like, they're holding on by a thread of the U.S. empire. So now is when we maximize our pressure. Now because you have Biden, the establishment doing the worst thing they possibly can by condemning the the protesters as terrorists and anti-Semites. Only thing they did was throw fuel on the fire and made things even more. Like, I'm so excited because I've never seen this much level of energy against not only just apartheid, not only just against Israel, but people are learning a lot about how our empire works, seeing through the war in Ukraine. Kobe, are you seeing that, like, the same energy? I know you just came back from protests. These protests are popping up all over the place. I was just at KU. There are protests in St. Louis. I'm thinking about going to Washington U here soon to cover that. It's about only 3 hours away. I think I can do that. So, Kobe, anything else you want to add if you want to piggyback off of that before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is interesting is the polarization between the people and the government. That is allegedly supposed to represent us. Um, you know, there's been in every city since October. That's almost 8 months now. In every city in the U.S., even in like Mississippi, and in places that a year ago never would have even dreamed of having protests for Palestine. There's hundreds of people, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people coming out, and you don't see that. You don't see Zionists doing that. Because they can't do that. They don't have that kind of mass support. What they have is the money. What they have is the support of um, corporations and of bourgeois politicians. So we need to build on that. We need to sustain that momentum, sustain that pressure, and build it up into something that can really challenge and possibly overthrow this system of oppression and exploitation that we're living under right now.
Well said as always. I have one more quick segment we can go through, and then we're gonna begin to wrap up after some super chats. Actually, I guess I'll do a super chat intermission now. I'll just read a few here before we get to our last segment. Thank you, Vinny, for the $5. After fighting the repercussions of ethnostatism from Germany, the liberal West's bright idea was to create an ethnostate in the Middle East. Wink. Well said, Vinny. Our audience base is always, they usually say this shit better than I do. Thanks for the $5. Old Crow. He's possessed by a Zionist worm. I'm sure you're talking about RFK Jr. And Tulsi and all these people, all these frauds I warn people about. Like, people sounding good with Ukraine. Like, bro, what about Israel? It's only a matter of time for these frauds to get exposed, and they are. Thanks for $50. I appreciate it, my friend. Keep up the fight, Nick. I just turned 57, and I continue to learn every day. Thank you and all the RBN team. That's the best compliment that I can get, because that's my goal, is to educate here. That's my part. That's the best. That's the role I play right now. I'm also the muscle too. You guys already know. Like, I'm ready. Thank you for $5, Wendy Melly. This will be the last one I read, and I'll read the rest after the next segment. People die in war, RFK. You wouldn't be that dismissive regarding civilian casualties if it was happening to Israeli citizens. Absolutely. You guys know why that is. Like, these Zionists inherently devalue Palestinian and Arab lives. Like, their videos, I have so many receipts I can show you guys of these IDF people essentially saying we're like, pretty much they're celebrating their glorious conquest of killing children. When it's talking about how they kill Arabs. So I'm gonna show you guys this before I'm gonna show you guys the ICJ thing. Because you have the IDF, you have Israel that's just openly bragging about the war crimes they're committing, like this one being one of them. It says, "Don't mess with Israel." Music off, but they bragging here. Like, this is what happens when you fuck with Israel. Okay, you just literally admitting to genocide here, admitting to war crimes. And there's so many examples of these. I gotta be careful what I show for YouTube, but they just posting casually war crimes on the Israeli social media, and they're being documented all over Twitter. And all these people saying they're not a genocide, pretending they're not seeing it. I'm literally just showing you guys a fraction of these psychopaths for the IDF. Like, this is, they going to like women's room and wearing their lingerie. This is IDF soldier going to children rooms and playing with their toys, celebrating that they murdered their family.
And compare that to the. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Kobe. I'll pass.
Just like looking at these kinds of videos that the IOF, the occupation forces, release, where they're basically mocking the families, the families that they murdered. When you compare that to the videos that are released by the resistance, where these are, guys in like, fake Adidas tracksuits and slide, sandals, like running up barefoot on a tank, and taking out a tank, taking out soldiers with millions of dollars of equipment. It becomes so clear, who the oppressor is and who the oppressed is, and where what side is on the right side of history. So it's so, like, you just have to look at what people are saying. It's not like there's this myth that is complicated. It's not complicated at all.
This kind of stuff they're saying. They're like, it's not a genocide. You gotta prove their intent. I'm like, guys, have you read anything they said ever?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not talking about like random like Twitter trolls. I'm talking like government officials who say stuff like, "Hey, there's no such thing as a Palestinian civilian. Oh, we just need to reconquer Gaza." These are genocidal statements. They just say out in the open. Carpet bomb Rafa, get it over with. Now, what I'm gonna show you guys, because this video is a banger. So we get near to the end here. I'm gonna play a bit of the video. I'm gonna play half of it, and then we come back, and I'm gonna pass it to you for your thoughts. Because it's a 6-minute video. So let's watch the first half. That's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna watch because this one part of South Africa just dismantling Israel. And Israel argument when they went to the court essentially was, hey man, South Africa is arguing on behalf of Hamas. They're Hamas. Like they getting like laughed out, they getting booed. While South Africa is coming with receipts. So what we're gonna do, we watch a few minutes of this and I'll pass it to you when we come back.
The destruction of Gaza and Palestinian life is understood by commanders and soldiers, as the video shows. An Israeli soldier from the 9203 Battalion commented as follows on photographs and footage he posted online of Palestinian homes and neighborhoods in Khan Yunis completely destroyed by the Israeli army. This year, we were honored to fulfill the command of the annihilation of Amalek, and may we finish the job. Such language continues to be widespread alongside calls by Israeli soldiers on the ground to conquer Gaza.
I'm on the beach in Gaza.
Look at this.
In Gush Katif. I'm safe, I'm happy. Me and my friends conquered Bet Laia and El Atatra and Sulatin, and we're moving on and we're going to conquer the rest of Gaza.
To flatten Gaza.
מוסרי זה לכבוש וליישב את כל חלקי ארץ ישראל, וכל מקום שנשאיר בו כן צרעות, יתנקם בנו במוקדם או במאוחר.
זכינו לשטח את עזה.
To erase Gaza.
תעלו והצליחו, תכסחו אותם כמה שיותר, שלא להשאיר מהם זכר, שלא הם, לא אמא שלהם, לא הילדה שלהם, לא התינוקות שלהם, אסור להם לחיות לחיות האלה.
To destroy Gaza.
יאללה לפרק את רפיח! יאללה לפרק את רפיח! יאללה לפרק את רפיח! יאללה לפרק את רפיח!
And after that, Ramallah also. Israeli soldiers serving in Gaza continue to openly call for the deaths to Arabs.
I just have to pause it there because I think that's what does that say at all?
Yeah,
Kobe,
and you know, there's
you want to add? Go ahead, Kobe.
yeah, you know, the absurdity of it sometimes is like they and by they I mean Zionists will say that when you say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that's like a call for genocide, you know. And they're completely silent when they see Zionists chanting death to Arabs, while also, you know, slaughtering tens of thousands of Palestinians. And you know, they're still saying, well, you know, will you condemn Hamas? Will you condemn the resistance? And you know, if you want Palestine to be free, you have to see it very clearly, and you have to refuse to condemn anybody who's fighting against oppression like that, because you know, from the river to the sea, like that's the demand. That's what's going to happen. That's where history is at. You know, that Palestine is going to be free, and that kind of that like genocidal bloodlust, like the rage that Zionists have when they see Palestinians resisting, like that's the same kind of rage that the slave owners had when the Haitians were kicking them out of Haiti. You know, it's the same kind of rage that slave owners felt when Nat Turner rebelled. And, you know, that's like throughout all the trauma and all the pain that they inflict, they have no path to victory. You know, so the resistance is going to win. And, you know, at some point we're going to look back on Israel like we look back on Rhodesia and apartheid South Africa and all these other the Confederate States of America, like all these other failed, projects to like hold back the liberation movements of oppressed people.
Yeah, bro. One of these days, these morons in the West is going to realize you don't win a war just by committing mass atrocities. Israel is losing. The resistance is winning, and Israel is at best forced to settle on diplomatic terms that they would consider a loss at the beginning of this conflict. Because their goal and their job was to wipe out Hamas and wipe out Palestinian resistance and ruin their diplomatic support. Those two objectives was absolutely not accomplished. Diplomatic and international support for Palestine is higher than ever. In fact, you have UN support to admit them as a state. That's an ongoing process now that Biden and the United States are trying to block. So to destroy Palestine diplomatically, they failed. Destroying Hamas and Palestinian resistance failed. In fact, Hezbollah, the Ansarullah, and now Hamas and the overall resistance is more united than ever against the Zionist entity. They are worse off now than they was in the beginning. This is a complete L, and they try to kill as many people as possible to cope with this fact. So anyway, let's continue. Great insights as always, Kobe. I'll play a few more minutes and feel free to chime in after our next little break here.
The soldiers serving in Gaza continue to openly call for the deaths to Arabs. Declaring, may you burn alive, that Gaza is burning, that we will burn your mother, and that all of Sajaiya will burn in flames. Public statements such as this show that even members of the Israeli parliament are fully aware of the orders of this court, but have continued to openly incite genocide without censure. Such sentiments are also widely expressed across Israeli society. Many Israelis, including Israelis living in illegal settlements in the West Bank, have actioned statements by government officials calling for the denial of aid to Gaza by destroying food aid on its way, including setting trucks on fire, putting sugar in tanks, and destroying the food itself. Israeli public officials, including singers inciting to genocide in Gaza, have had their incitement rewarded.
שאנחנו צריכים להכות באויב 10 מכות, למחות את זכר עמלק, כמו שכתוב, להרים את הזרוע בחג הפסח בזרוע נטויה, ביד חזקה ובזרוע נטויה, ולתת לו מכה אחת כזאת שהוא יצרח.
One singer who popularized and adapted to Israel's current military operations in Gaza, the racist Israel football chant, may your village burn, changed it to may Gaza be erased.
You guys see, for our last little intermission here, you guys see the amount of undeniable evidence that South Africa is bringing. Now you guys see why there was a complete media blackout in the West when South Africa was presenting their argument. And then when Israel presented their argument at the International Court of Justice, the BBC shamelessly live streamed the whole thing as if it made Israel look good. So the moron RFK Jr. said there's no evidence that there's a genocide in Israel. Meanwhile, South Africa got receipt after receipt after receipt. This is why I said international law is on trial as much as Israel is. Because I know there's a side I'm on this apparently on. I'm not denying that. But how can anyone deny the ironclad arguments that South Africa is making right now? You want to know the serious arguments that Israel is making right now? They're making a mockery of international law, my friends. They're not even taking it seriously. I showed you guys the bumbling speech they gave a few weeks ago. Their argument is legitimately that they're doing this, that South Africa is doing this for Hamas. Literally, Blinken, the Biden administration, is saying, literally agreed with Israel that South Africa is moving and benefiting on behalf of Hamas. There was legislation made by Republican members of Congress that was reevaluating the relationship with South Africa because of their genocide case. And one of the reasons they mentioned in the legislation was because they said that South Africa was being friendly with Hamas. You guys see how they're not even taking this seriously? As South Africa is bringing the receipts, going to the science, you have the West spreading bumbling, idiotic lies, ridiculous claims that South Africa is doing it because somehow they are favored to a fringe radical Islamic group. That's absurd. Kobe, you want to take that? You want to add to this?
Yeah, I think it's the kind of like might makes right ideology. Like there's nowhere they can go in terms of like justifying what they're doing. Uh, if you believe that Palestinians are human beings, which they are, you have to see this for what it is. And those people who are chanting, who are singing about death to Arabs, and like that's top down, in Israeli society. Like that's from Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, the soccer players. They had kids, throwing out the aid that was supposed to be going into Gaza. So that kind of indoctrination that people go through is to dehumanize Palestinians. And from like Frantz Fanon, Malcolm X, and a lot of other people said that like there's no reasoning with that kind of oppression. Like history has shown us that you can't argue with that. You have to deal with that by force. That's the only language that the oppressor understands. So again, that's why armed struggle is justified, and that's why we need to do whatever we can do from inside the belly of the beast in the United States to build up support for the Palestinian resistance and to end the U.S. support of Israel. To end our tax dollars going to Israel. That's something that we have to do. So the protests, like that's why we're out there. That's why we're going to stay out there for as long as we have to until Palestine is free.
Yeah, well said. And once again, you can't reason with these psychopathic genocidal monsters who justify the bombing of hospitals, the murdering of journalists, the use of starvation as tool of wars, the use of concentration camps and torture. This is these clowns here. Israel accused South Africa of taking their case to the ICJ on behalf of Hamas. As you guys saw the fire, and I'm going to finish that video, but I'm going to show you guys just the contrast. How seriously South Africa is taking this versus the West that is treating this like a fucking game.
Targeting of civilians is a war crime. And it's for that reason, shortly after October 7th, we approached the International Criminal Court to ask for both Hamas and those involved in the armed attacks to be investigated for war crimes under that Geneva Convention Protocol 1, but also in terms of the Rome Statute. We also asked for, of course, for Israel to be investigated for war crimes. And in the case of Israel, also because of genocide, because of the unfolding genocide. So to argue that we are here again, as they did in January on behest of Hamas, is completely false. Targeting of civilians.
I didn't have the response, I believe, but this is I'll finish the response for South Africa, and then I get the other comment in there.
Can I just say one thing about that?
Singing
like,
it to Israeli soldiers in live performances was presented with a certificate of appreciation for his work for the IDF soldiers during the war by the Deputy Speaker of Knesset, hosted by Israel's Minister of Social Equality and the Advancement of Women.
אנחנו לא שורפים את הכפר, אנחנו מוחקים להם את הכפר וצריכים לשרוף להם את הכפר.
Another singer,
Kobe, anything you want to add in this?
Yeah. So the point about the killing of civilians, the rate of civilian casualties that the Israeli occupation forces have inflicted on Palestine and Gaza specifically, it's like some upwards of 90%. It's at least half of the people who've been killed are children. Were children. Between 2/3 and 75% of the people killed were either women or children. So these are not militants that they're killing. And like I said earlier, they cannot kill the resistance. They cannot kill the militants. All they're doing, they're being embarrassed on the battlefield by people, popping out of tunnels and shooting them with, rockets that were made with a fraction of the price of these, big Merkava tanks. So that's why you don't see the Israeli occupation forces releasing battlefield footage. You see them releasing footage of themselves, like running through people's houses and shooting at chalkboards in classrooms, because their only recourse, what they believe is going to get them to victory, is by killing civilians. So, when people say that that Israel is doing whatever, they're doing everything they can to avoid civilian casualties, like that's flipping reality on its head. Whereas the resistance of the around 1,000 people that were killed on October 7th, at least half of them were, Israeli occupation forces or Israeli police officers. And, like, again, like you don't even have to be in full support of the resistance to understand that there is a huge discrepancy between what the resistance is doing and what the occupation forces are doing. Like there is a genocidal power. There's an oppressor, and it's so obvious to anyone who is not like thoroughly indoctrinated or doesn't have some kind of interest in lying about the situation.
Right. Yeah. Well, so I'm gonna just finish the clip, but we're gonna wrap up here soon. Let's finish the clip, and then I'm gonna read a little bit of super chats, and we wrap up.
Friends, by South Africa before this court in the January 2024 application for his call to erase Gaza and not to leave a single person there has similarly been rewarded. Both were brought to the attention of Israeli authorities in South Africa's application and pleadings before this court. Neither of them, nor any of the other Israeli officials and civilians inciting to genocide against the Palestinians have been prosecuted, much less punished. The genocidal acts described in South Africa's application were foreseen and foreseeable from the onset. Israel's intent was always to destroy Palestinian life and to wipe them off the face of the earth.
Well said. So I want to get super chats. Kobe, anything else you want to add regarding the state of the resistance, the ICJ, and just the absurd arguments that people like RFK said there's no evidence of genocide despite the fact that South Africa just destroyed the points. Anything else you want to add to this, Kobe, before we read a few super chats and get out of here? Check your audio here.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm old at heart. I'm only 27, but sometimes you guys know I fuck up all the time, so no judgments here. Yeah. But yeah, that bill that you mentioned, that needs to be opposed. Like I haven't really been able to follow up on like whether it's passed through, because it like passed one of the committees in the House. I haven't really followed up that much. But we can't have that passing. They're trying to put sanctions on South Africa for standing up for Palestine. Um, and that, like, again, it's some things like that. We have to come out in support of South Africa. We have to come out and support, and say hands off Yemen, hands off Iran, hands off anybody who U.S. imperialists are trying to tell us is the enemy in this moment, when we can very clearly see with our own eyes, who is committing a genocide. And we can see that our tax dollars, the money that we work very hard for, that is not being used to, like, the school that I work at, I don't want to say too much about it, but it's not, we're not seeing much of those tax dollars. The roads, we're not seeing those tax dollars. There's people sleeping on the streets, people with no food. And yet we have billions and billions of dollars to send to fascists in other countries so that they can commit genocide. That's something that we have to put a stop to, and we have to force this government to stop that.
Yeah, that's a message that I always want to bring to people, that poverty is a decision that our ruling class make. Like, if you take the money that we send to Israel and Ukraine, boom, homelessness solved. Like, we have a central planning model that is chaos and poverty by design. Doesn't have to be this way. They choose to. They want it to be, because it's always class war. When you guys realize, always class war. Let's get super chats. When I do super chats, you can interrupt anytime when I'm spitballing, when I'm chatting. I'm not gonna get upset if you interrupt. I'll just let you speak. Thank you for $5, MC. Thank you for the $5, James. And we definitely gotta have you back on again. Always great to have someone who actually engaged and organized and understand the history of this. So we definitely gotta reach out and have you back on again. Great recommendation. Big shout out to Zoya's Love, Zoya's Life, putting in work for us this week. Thank you for the $5, James. Thank you for the $5. Social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie, powerful name. Nick, after the thing with Paige, I went to look up your can history. I'm proud of the man you become, your journey. I appreciate that. Thank you for $5. I appreciate that. I appreciate the $5, Otto Carnage. Yeah, it's been a long road, man. Like, you guys saw with our anniversary, just seeing that video when I did my first live stream, when I was super nervous on stream, on camera. Still nervous now, but it's been a long journey, guys. I need to rest. Thank you for $5, Otto. Watching the banger after banger. I tell you guys, bro, this is the first week of the new era. The first week, we got the Sabi and JB show. Make sure you watch that if you did, and that was on Thursday. The JB show is gonna be back as well, bro. We got RBN live playing. We got so much stuff coming, bro. You guys don't know. Banger after banger. South Africa, once again, they don't benefit from this. They were saying South Africa is working for Hamas. What do they benefit from this? Now you have the United States that are passing bills talking about they're going to reevaluate our status with South Africa, sanctions on South Africa, relationships being ruined. They don't gain from this.
Yeah.
They just
as if Hamas has the money to be paying South Africa. Like, the US is like holding, trillions of dollars of investments over their heads, saying like, oh, we're going to take all this away from you for supporting Palestine. And they're going ahead because they know how important it is they know how important international solidarity is to fighting against oppression. They're in it. They know the Palestinians were supporting them in their fight against apartheid. So, they're returning that I don't want to use the word favor, but they're returning that solidarity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Thank you for the $50, Alex. Talk. Class trader here. We already know. Appreciate it. It's frustrating trying to sway the spoiled people at my Zionist-dominated big tech company. Yikes. But it's the mission, and we can't quit. Well said. This person is in the fight. Let's keep up the fight. My first ever super chat was at the end of the first General Strike Summit. What's popping? So we have a long time support here. We appreciate you, Alex.
And we appreciate class traders. Give some money to NAARPR.org. We could always use some cash. FRSO.org. We are accepting donations, and of course, there's like thousands of GoFundMe's of people in Gaza who need to.
Let me put your stuff up. We definitely gonna have you on again, because we definitely gonna make sure we get you all support we can as well. Because anyone, especially out there organizing in the struggle, that's especially what this new era is about, bro. We want to elevate as many people out there in the street as possible. I got your profile up here. Now let me pull this side up here. I can have this in the background as I read super chats, I guess. This is the website, right? This it.
Yep.
About us. Well, I'll read another super chat. I'm gonna go through the site here soon, though. I have it up in the background. I'll put you up top. Let's move on. Thank you for the $10. We're almost done. Would love to see a parallel government summit on your channel. Also, please consider a buy me a coffee option for your YouTube shows. Something else we're definitely doing for the new era. We're taking a lot of suggestion from the chat. So Zoya, I need you to write that down. Zoya's helping me out a lot. My advisor, my booker, fucking everything, I guess. Thank you for $2, Paul. Brit's done over the blacks and Irish. Thank you, Paul, for the super chat. This is my friend Lucy. What's poppin', Lucy? Blue Moon Red Wine. Make sure you guys subscribe to her channel. RFK also plagiarized his entire vaccine platform. Yeah, that's true. From Dr. Shiva. He is not against vaccine. JFK also passed vaccines in 1960s to make pharma not liable. He wants to make money off of safe vaccines. I didn't go down that rabbit hole, but I would love to hear more about that, Lucy. That's hilarious. Thank you for $2, Paul. Okay, ER all lobbied. What's popping? Thank you for $2, Jakey as well. RFK is sad. Man, we got a big show up for tonight. For today. I think we almost caught up. Almost. Yeah, I think I read this one. Big shout out to Luis again. I think we caught up. People dying war. Yeah, I think big shout out to Wendy again. Let me check the bottom. I think we're almost done. I'll pass it to you, Kobe. I'm gonna give you the last word. This is a new one that just came out. I'll read this one. And Kobe, I give you the last word regarding what we just talked about, the genocide in Gaza, the ICJ, Palestine Resistance. You also can shout out your organization. Just kind of a last. I'll pass you one more good time, and then we can give a shout out to your organization as well and wrap up. Thank you, Sam. Do you see that Midwestern Marks and Infrared are holding a pro-Palestine event in Michigan next week? Thoughts? Good for them. I think it should be all hands on deck. That's why I believe all hands on deck against the genocidal regime. Kobe, anything you want to add?
One thing about that. One thing about that last chat. There's another. I actually didn't know about that other the Midwestern Marks event. But there is a conference, and I think they're still accepting registrations. It's the People's Conference for Palestine. It's being organized by the Palestine Youth Movement with the endorsement of a bunch of other Palestinian organizations. That's happening in Detroit from starting on Friday, the 24th, up until the following Sunday, I believe. So that's a very important conference to attend as well. Again, shout out to all the Freedom Road Socialist Organization comrades. There is a join page. You can join as a general member. If you just, if you're not able to be there, if you're not in a city that where we're located, you can just donate $20 a year and attend one meeting every, I think, quarterly or yearly. And then, if you're interested in getting involved in an organization, I'd give a shout out to the U.S. Palestinian Community Network, National Alliance Against Racism and Oppression. Like I said, we're in a bunch of cities around the country, and of course, Freedom Road Socialist Organization. We do a lot, and we're in a lot of places. But the reason we can do all that is because we have a very deep collective, and it's getting bigger every day. So I would definitely advise people to join. And of course, the students are doing amazing work. These encampments, the Students for Justice in Palestine are doing some tremendous stuff. The Palestine Youth Movement, the Students for a Democratic Society, They're, springing up like mushrooms everywhere. And it is amazing to see because, that's history that's happening before our eyes. And if you want to be a part of that, you're going to have to get involved in some way. Um, last thing I'll say, the I actually forgot to mention the march on the RNC. So in Milwaukee, on July 15th, the march on the Republican National Convention is happening. Malcolm X used to say that uh, the Republicans are like wolves, like you can see them coming, like they come at you with a snarl, and the Democrats are like foxes, they come at you like with a smile. But both of them are dogs, and they'll both rip your throat out. And I think um, like it made me think of this not Egyptian, this Greek mythology, this mythological monster, Cerberus, with the that dog with the multiple heads. The like one face looks different from the other, but they're both feeding the same imperialist stomach. And that's why we're protesting against the RNC and the DNC. So July 15th, the march on the RNC is happening in Milwaukee. August 19th until the 22nd, we're going to be protesting against the DNC in Chicago. So if you are anywhere in the Midwest, it's drivable. You can make it. I promise it is going to be an amazing, incredible, history-making event.
Let's go. Let's go.
So yeah, come through.
I'm going. Let's go. What's poppin', fam? We going. Who going? Let's go. Who in Chicago? What's poppin', fam? Kid, I already told you I'm going up there. So we going. Go ahead, Kobe. You spitting. I'm excited because I'm seeing the movement come together. I'm seeing the plan work out. You know what I mean? People who all over the country, everyone organized and putting this together, putting pressure on the state. Any last words, Kobe? I'll give you last thoughts.
Yeah, just whatever you can do. Like I always there's a tendency of people, and I know I'm very sure a lot of your listeners are like this, to kind of feel like you're not doing enough. When you look at the gravity of this moment, like tens of thousands of people being killed. Um, there's a tendency to think that, well, what can I do as an individual? But like when we have a collective, when we get together as our mass, in our masses, in our collective, we can make history happen. Like we can destroy empires, and we are going to. So thank you, Zoya, for the pull up.
Yeah, I think this is a good. Do you want to take this on? I'm interested in hearing your point
Yeah,
of view. This is Zoya's
yeah.
question.
So
I tee you up. This is Zoya's love, Zoya's life. Dubala, can you explain why people should read The Revolutionary Science of Marxist-Leninism? So I'll pass it to you, my friend.
yeah, so Freedom Road has released several, theoretical texts. One of them is The Revolutionary Science of Marxism-Leninism, which actually goes over, and I always keep it on me. It goes
Based.
over dialectical materialism, like the sort of philosophical underpinnings of the work that we do as socialists and as communists. It goes over the organization, how like democratic centralism, that the method of organization that Lenin used to spark to carry through the Russian Revolution. Not just Lenin, but the Bolsheviks. Um, it goes over the building of socialism. It goes over the workings of capitalism and how it changed from industrial capitalism in the 1800s, in the 17 and 1800s, to monopoly capitalism, or what we know today as imperialism, with sort of taking over of the entire world and the division of the world into oppressor nations and oppressed nations. So it's a really good read. I would also advise people to get, and I have it around here somewhere, but uh, I'd also advise people to read Marxist-Leninist Perspectives on Black Liberation and Socialism by Frank Chapman. That was also published by Freedom Road. Um, and that book, ML Perspectives on Black Liberation and Socialism, um, kind of has a historical overview of the Black liberation movement from Reconstruction all the way up until the 1940s and 50s. That was, and how the alliance between the Black liberation movement, between sharecroppers and people who were working in predominantly Black workplaces and people who are fighting against lynching, how they united with the working class movements, the labor movement. And that's something that we have to do today. Like I mentioned, I'm a teacher. I'm a member of the Chicago Teachers Union, and CTU has done incredible things, and other unions have done incredible things in advancing the fight for social justice. The fights for the fights against oppression, because most oppressed people are working class, and most working class people are oppressed in some way, whether they're oppressed by nationality, by gender. Um, that's why we have to unite those movements. And lastly, the Freedom Road program. I see the picture. I think I might have taken the picture. But the Freedom Road program it's available for $5 on the Freedom Road website. It's also, you can get the PDF for free, but we charge for the physical copies just so that we can. Unfortunately, we still live under capitalism, and it does cost money to print things. So definitely, all those books are amazing reads, and worth reading and rereading and sharing with other people. And we are at at freedomroad.org on Twitter. Every I feel like I see a new city every day. We're in in Chicago, of course, in New York, in New Orleans, Tampa, Tallahassee, um, Milwaukee, Minneapolis. We could be here for another hour just listing the cities where we've done some incredible work in as well. So definitely check out Freedom Road, check out the Chicago Alliance, and yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, it was great hearing from you and your perspective. I learned a lot, and I always appreciate reading suggestions as well. Always can learn some more. You can always learn more. They're always what we should strive to learn and have and build an intelligent working class. We must reject the anti-intellectualism that the capitalist class enforced on us, want us to embrace. And most people, because it's easy, openly embrace it. But we must reject it because that's only an obstacle for a revolutionary change. And once again, I'm not a liberal. I don't believe in liberal ideology. I believe that there's a responsibility that we all should take on. And that responsibility is making ourselves better so we can help each other become better. And that's only what these theory readings and suggesting and advocating for intellectualism brings us. So I very appreciate being in community with you. We definitely will have you on again. And I definitely will look into all those protests in Chicago, because I'm definitely going to pull up and try to see what we can do there. So anyway, I'll put you in the back there and do my last little shouts out here. I appreciate you joining us. And I think the next show, I think JB will join us on Sunday. I need a day off. You guys know we putting out bangers or after bangers. I'm doing the best I can. So I'm going to take a break here. I think JB should be live on Sunday. Sabby has a big radio show she joined us on Monday. I know she's super excited about it. I'm blanking on this guy's name. We got a lot. And I also have Lion Cosgrove from the Gray Zone. He'll be joining me on Tuesday. So we got banger after banger coming up. So I'll let you guys go. Have a nice weekend.